Dear guests, thank you. As I stand here tonight, my emotions are a peculiar blend. While humbled, I must add that I am also eclipsed by bitterness, disappointment, and concern. I wish that I would have felt more optimistic as someone who over 4 decades has observed the spectacular adventures of his homeland. My limited sense of hope was that a month ago, the people of Turkey would have rejected, with an overwhelming majority, the accelerated slide to tyranny, exposing us observers as driven by illusion. They did not issue a loud and clear no. It's not the 49% who said no to such a willful push which interests me, but rather the 51% who said yes. I would have accepted if it were, say, up to 20%. This is very discouraging. After 15 years of struggle for human dignity in a country where Pandora's box was kept open, such level of suicidal willingness is dragging with it the entire Asia Minor, a cradle of civilizations, a ground for coexistence, however tense, to the abyss of cruelty. Yet throughout history we have all known that once the power is handed over to a single man, it only bodes for ill times. Every word coming out of his lips, which is instantly perceived as a verdict, only deepens the nightmare for all those who cherish freedom, individuality, civilian courage, integrity, and compassion, ending more often than not in disaster. I remember Germany, 1934, in shivers. I wanted to hope that our memories after 2 world wars and the destructive Cold One would be so fresh that history would repeat itself much less. Thus my disappointment. Many of us intellectuals in Turkey, those of us with different colors but with honesty in common, had known all along that as the millennium began, our country had also come to a critical existential threshold, 2001, 2002. With the new breed of politicians, which was represented by a new political party, AKP, then our hope was that Turkey at last would be able to shake off dark parts of its shaky past and would deliver equality, dignity, and justice to its citizens who were deceived by its elite. The rotten state of management had come to a watershed, and the question was whether or not the country would be able to take that leap. Pandora's box, which kept the ghosts of the past, such as severe atrocities against the folks in Asia Minor and the human suffering caused by a ruthless social and political engineering, was opened just so that this experiment, which we called normalization, would be successful. But it required that A, a culture of consensus be encouraged, B, the well-educated secular elite would wise up and learn from its past mistakes and develop new political alternatives, and C, the party which took over, the AKP, would be a coordinator or carrier of democratization in which they would be seen as the ones that raised the quality of the Republican order, in a sense that it redistributed, not accumulated power. In all three, unfortunately, we failed. Thus my bitterness, that not only it's directed at those in power who deliberately blocked it from happening, but also to its opponents, who now, to a large part, either submissive or to authoritarianism being cemented, or busy building a new coalition to be part of the rotten system, simply, paradoxically refreshed. I am only one of those who saw his duty to stop this repeat of history from happening. Well, I will quote Hannah Arendt in this context. In Origins of the Authoritarianism, she says, the ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the dedicated communist, but for people for whom the distinction between fact and the fiction, true and false, no longer exists. This is more or less where we are in many countries, but particularly, spectacularly in Turkey. In my lifetime, I have witnessed more suffering in my country than my share. And also my memory is strong enough to remind others on how vast the torment of a few German intellectuals, few of them, who saw the storm clouds gathering when Reichstag fire started spreading to the streets and homes of entire Germany. Utopian humanist Russian intellectuals whose efforts to stop Stalin ended when the murder of Kirov was the final blow to open the gates of hell. Or many Iranian intellectuals whose warnings were lost in the void as theocratic fascism rose before their eyes, wiping everything diverse on its way. The battle for human rights was the backbone of my journalism, which I hoped that it would be, and I am, after 15 years of a vicious cycle, left only with gloom once more in my career. Pessimistic about the deepening crisis in Turkey as I am, nevertheless, I do feel the same obligation to do my best as a witness of my time, to keep a focus on the freedoms and rights, but this time as a victim myself in exile. I'm struck by clairvoyant qualities of Stefan Zweig, whom I believe everyone concerned about the world these days should read, who said in his memoirs, Die Welt von gestern, only the misfortune of exile can provide the in-depth understanding and the overview into the realities of the world. And he also said, in the end of the book, only the person who has experienced light and darkness, war and peace, rise and fall, only that person has truly experienced life. So true for all of us these days. Despite being torn apart from my homeland now, I still feel lucky in comparison with many intellectuals who, due to their strong sense of ethics and intellectual honesty, professional honesty, were killed, jailed, fired, left jobless, living under constant threat and horror. I dedicate this award to the memory of my dear friend, colleague Hrant Dink, the Kurdish human activist Tahir Elchi, and all the others, many of them so young, who lost their lives, and all the colleagues of mine thrown into jail. As of tonight, 170 now, about 2/3 of the global figure of jail journalists, and all the colleagues of mine feeling totally lost in their incomeless, jobless, unemployed, simply because of their staunch defense of our noble profession, journalism. It goes to all in Turkey, the award that I received, who resent and fight against despotism. Thank you very much.